She had just stopped for coffee. He had nowhere else to go. And those twin girls, they hadn't smiled in days until that moment. What happened next wasn't just kindness. It was the beginning of something no one expected. This is the story of how a single mom changed three lives with one bold sentence. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who still believes in kindness, and subscribe for more stories that'll warm your heart and maybe even change it. The soft patter of rain had just started as Lily Morgan pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders and stepped into the small-town diner. It was one of those gray afternoons where everything felt sleepy, except her thoughts. She had just gotten off work from the hardware store, exhausted, and all she wanted was a cup of hot coffee before heading home to her quiet little world. But fate had other plans. Across the street, slouched near a closed bus stop bench, sat a man in a worn-out military jacket. His head was bowed, soaked hair dripping as he clutched an old backpack. On either side of him were two tiny figures, twin girls. They huddled close to him, trying to share the warmth of the same torn coat. Their shoes were muddy, their cheeks pink from the cold, their eyes too quiet for children that young. Lily stood frozen for a moment, one hand still on the diner's door handle. Her instincts pulled at her heart like gravity. She'd been a single mom for 6 years. She knew the look of struggle, of trying to be strong for little eyes that watched everything. Crossing the street, she knelt beside them. "Hey there, are you okay?" she asked softly. The man looked up. He was maybe in his late 30s. His eyes were tired, sunken but calm. "We're fine," he said, though his voice was rough like he hadn't used it much lately, just waiting for the rain to stop. The twins didn't speak, but one of them clutched a tattered stuffed bunny in her arms. Lily offered a smile to them. "You hungry?" He hesitated. Pride flickered in his expression. "I can pay," she added gently, "for all of us." That's when the magic started. Inside the diner, over grilled cheese sandwiches and hot cocoa, the girls finally giggled. The man, he introduced himself as Caleb, shared little pieces of his story. He'd returned from deployment only to find no job, no home, and no one waiting for him. His wife had passed away 2 years earlier. He'd been doing his best. But now, this was the edge. Lily listened quietly. She didn't press, didn't pity. As they finished the meal and the girls leaned sleepily against their father's shoulders, Caleb reached for the bill. Lily gently pushed his hand away. She stood, picked up his worn backpack, and looked at him with calm strength. "You're coming with me," she said. He blinked. "What?" "You need a place. I have one. No arguments." The twins looked up at her with wide, hopeful eyes. And just like that, three strangers became something else. Not all love stories begin with roses or fireworks. Some begin with warm breakfasts, shared chores, bedtime giggles, and two strangers quietly stitching a family together, thread by invisible thread. Stay with us as this bond grows, and if you believe in second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories just like this. Lily's home wasn't much. A 2-bedroom house on the edge of town with secondhand furniture, chipped mugs in the kitchen, and a front porch that creaked with every step. But it was warm. It was safe. And that night, for the first time in weeks, Caleb and his daughters slept in real beds. He insisted it was only temporary. "I'll find work," he had said quietly. "We'll be out of your hair soon." But Lily didn't rush him. She didn't need to. Instead, she quietly cleared space in the linen closet, found 2 small backpacks for the girls' things, and added 3 extra chairs to the dinner table. At first, they kept to themselves. Caleb helped with chores, fixed the leaky faucet, oiled the squeaky door hinges, replaced the bulb on the porch light. Lily said nothing, just offered coffee with a smile every morning. The twins, Sophie and Eliza, followed her everywhere, always asking questions, drawing pictures, and sticking glitter stickers on the fridge. Routines began to form like gentle waves. Caleb made breakfast each morning, eggs and toast, sometimes pancakes with blueberries. Lily did the girls' hair before school, sometimes braiding matching ribbons. They took turns walking the girls to the bus stop. Evenings were filled with dinner, laughter, and the occasional storytelling session where Caleb pretended to be a dragon and Lily a brave knight. One evening, after the girls had gone to sleep, Lily and Caleb sat quietly on the porch. The night was cool, the stars clear, and the silence between them comforting. "You didn't have to do this," Caleb said, staring at the sky. She looked at him, her voice calm. "I didn't plan to. I just couldn't walk away." He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm not used to people seeing us. Most just walk by." Lily's eyes didn't leave his. "I saw you, and I saw them." That night, when Lily went to bed, she stood for a long moment by the door of the twins' room. They were tangled in their blankets, sleeping deeply, peacefully. The stuffed bunny rested between them, and in that moment she realized this wasn't charity. It was the beginning of something real. Every home has its own silence, but when silence hides pain, it finds a way to break through. Some truths don't knock. They crash in, uninvited. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Caleb and the girls had moved into Lily's home. The rhythms of their makeshift family were steady now. School drop-offs, evening walks, pancakes on Sundays. There was laughter again, and the house, once quiet, now echoed with tiny footsteps and twin giggles. But something lingered behind Caleb's eyes. He smiled more now, but it rarely reached his face fully. And sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, Lily would catch him staring at the wall, distant, jaw clenched, like he was still stuck somewhere far away. One quiet morning, Lily came home early from the hardware store, arms full of groceries. As she pushed open the door, she paused. The house was still, too still. Then she heard it, a strained voice coming from the garage. She moved closer. The door was cracked open just enough. Inside, Caleb sat alone on an old wooden stool, his head in his hands. His phone sat on the workbench, speaker still glowing faintly from a call he'd just ended. "No, there's no next of kin," he'd said moments earlier. "They died in the fire. I couldn't save them." Lily's heart froze. She stepped back, quietly closing the door, but her hands trembled as she carried the groceries to the kitchen. That evening, over dinner, she watched Caleb more closely. The twins were cheerful as always, retelling a school story with wild hand gestures and messy spaghetti faces. Caleb laughed, played along, but the weight he carried was heavier than before. Later that night, when the girls were asleep, Lily stepped into the living room, where he sat staring out the window. "I overheard something earlier," she said gently. He didn't move. "I wasn't trying to. I just came home early." He sighed long and deep. "It's okay. You said something about a fire." Caleb looked at her, then really looked. "My brother and his wife, they were the only family I had left, died in a fire 6 months ago. I didn't even find out until weeks after. I was still deployed." Lily sat beside him. "I'm sorry. They were supposed to take the girls if anything ever happened to me. That was the plan. But now, there is no plan," he said quietly. "I came home, and there was no home left. Just two scared girls and a pile of debts no one would claim." Lily swallowed the knot in her throat. "You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you away." She looked at him, firm and calm. "You don't scare me, Caleb." He turned away, but she saw it. A single tear sliding down his cheek. And for the first time, he didn't wipe it away. Even in the warmest homes, storms can build. All it takes is one moment, one misunderstanding, for everything to start slipping through the cracks. The next few days were different. Not colder, but quieter. Caleb kept busy, fixing the back fence, organizing the garage, even repainting the porch swing. Lily noticed how he kept his hands moving like he was trying to silence something inside him. He smiled when the girls were around, laughed at their knock-knock jokes, helped with homework. But when it was just the two of them, the space between them stretched further. Lily didn't push, not at first, but silence can be just as loud as words. One Thursday evening, after a long shift, Lily walked into the kitchen to find Sophie crying silently at the table. Eliza stood next to her, arms crossed, as if protecting her twin. "What happened, sweetie?" Lily asked, kneeling down. "She said we might leave again," Sophie whispered, wiping her cheeks. "We just got our beds." Lily's stomach twisted. Later, when Caleb returned from his walk, she didn't wait. "Why would Sophie think you're leaving?" He looked startled. I, I didn't mean to upset them. I just said we shouldn't get too comfortable." "Too comfortable," she repeated, her voice sharper than she intended. "You live here. They feel safe here. It's not our home, Lily." "But they want it to be," she snapped, then immediately caught herself. Her voice dropped. "I want it to be." Caleb exhaled slowly, leaning against the kitchen counter. "This was never supposed to be permanent. You don't owe us anything. I can't let you carry the weight of someone else's broken family." "You think this is a burden?" Lily asked. "You think I'm doing this out of pity?" He didn't answer. "That night at the diner, I didn't hesitate, and I'm not hesitating now. But you are, every day, because you're still waiting for it all to fall apart again." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Because it always does." There was a long pause. Somewhere down the hall, the twins' laughter echoed from the bedroom. Soft, innocent, unaware. Lily's eyes glistened. "You don't get to make that decision alone anymore. Not with those girls. Not with me." He looked at her, something shifting behind his eyes. Fear, guilt, maybe both. And then he walked past her, out the door, didn't slam it, didn't yell, just left. Lily stood alone in the kitchen, heart pounding, and for the first time since she brought them home, she felt cold again. It's not always the leaving that hurts most. Sometimes it's the silence after, the unanswered messages, the unopened doors, and the wondering if you ever meant anything at all. The next morning was hollow. The coffee tasted bitter. The kitchen felt empty, and the silence at the breakfast table was loud enough to drown Lily's thoughts. Caleb hadn't come home. Sophie and Eliza didn't ask where he was, not out loud, but their eyes searched every doorway. Lily pretended everything was fine. She packed their lunches, braided their hair, kissed their foreheads, and then watched from the window as the school bus took them away. As soon as the bus turned the corner, Lily broke. She leaned against the fridge, tears spilling freely. She hadn't cried in years, not since her own divorce, not since the nights she counted pennies and prayed the lights wouldn't go out. But this was different. She had let them in, not just into her home, into her life, her heart, her future. She saw something real in Caleb's eyes. And now, he had vanished like a gust of wind in a house with open doors. She tried calling him, once, then again, no answer. By the afternoon, she drove around town, checked the park, the diner, even the old motel off Route 7 where struggling veterans sometimes found shelter. Nothing. By evening, she sat on the porch, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her mind raced with every doubt, every reason he might have left. Maybe she moved too fast. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he never planned to stay. The door creaked behind her. It was Eliza holding her blanket, sleepy-eyed. "Miss Lily," she said softly, "is Daddy mad at us?" Lily felt her throat tighten. She reached out and pulled the little girl into her lap. "No, sweetheart, not at all." "Then why did he go?" "I think he's just scared." "Of what?" Lily stared into the quiet night, stroking Eliza's hair. "Of staying." She rocked her gently, the same way she had when her own son was that age. And in that moment, she made herself a promise. Whether Caleb came back or not, she would never let these girls feel abandoned again. But deep inside, something else whispered louder than the doubt, a question she was too afraid to say aloud. Sometimes, hope doesn't knock on the front door. Sometimes it limps back through the shadows, ashamed, tired, but desperate to be let in. 2 days passed. Still no word. Lily tried to keep the girls distracted. Movie nights with popcorn, bubble baths filled with too many toys, silly bedtime stories where dragons had tickle fights instead of breathing fire. But behind every smile, Sophie and Eliza were waiting. Behind every smile, and so was Lily. On the third evening, the sky was heavy with clouds. Lily stood outside on the porch, watching the wind push through the trees. Her arms were crossed, sweater pulled tight, the chill in the air seeping deeper than her skin. Then she heard it. Not footsteps, Not a voice, but the creak of the side gate. She turned. There he was, Caleb. He stood in the rain, drenched, shoulders sagging beneath the weight of something invisible but enormous. His face was pale, his eyes tired, and in his hand, a folded sheet of paper, wrinkled and wet. Lily didn't move. I walked out, he said quietly, because I didn't know how to stay. She stared at him, heart caught between anger and relief. You didn't answer. You didn't even— I was ashamed, he interrupted. I thought leaving would make it easier for all of you. For you. Her voice cracked. You didn't make anything easier. He stepped closer, water dripping from his sleeves. I went back to the VA office. Thought maybe I'd find some help. Thought maybe I'd just disappear. But everywhere I went, I kept hearing Eliza's laugh. I kept seeing Sophie's drawings. And I couldn't stop thinking about how you looked at me. Not like I was broken, but like I mattered. He held out the paper. Lily unfolded it. It was a drawing. Crayons, scribbled lines. A picture of 4 people holding hands. A woman with curly hair, a man with a beard, and 2 little girls between them. Above it, in clumsy handwriting, it said, Our new family. They drew it that night, Caleb said, before I walked out, and I didn't even look at it until this morning. Lily felt the breath leave her lungs. She looked up at him, eyes soft but searching. Are you staying this time? I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. Not unless you ask me to. She opened the door wider. You're already home, she said. He stepped inside, and as the door closed behind them, the storm outside faded. Not because the rain stopped, but because the warmth within was stronger. Some promises aren't made with rings or grand gestures. They're made in whispers after midnight, in rooms filled with sleeping children, and in hearts that finally dared to believe again. That night the house felt different. Not louder, not brighter. Just full. After the girls had fallen asleep, one with her hand still clutching Lily's fingers, the other curled up against Caleb's chest on the couch. The 2 adults found themselves sitting in the kitchen again. A soft lamp glowed in the corner, casting gentle shadows over the worn tile floor. The silence between them wasn't tense now. It was calm, honest. Lily poured 2 mugs of tea and slid one across the table. Caleb nodded his thanks, his fingers wrapping around the warmth like he was still unsure if it was real. For a while they didn't speak. They just listened. To the ticking of the clock, the quiet breathing from the hallway, the house settling into itself like it too was finally at peace. Then Lily asked, Do you want to talk about it? Caleb shook his head slowly. Not all of it. Not yet. But I do want to say something. She waited. I've spent the last few years thinking I was just surviving, getting through one day at a time. But these last few weeks, this house, the girls laughing again, I forgot what it felt like to live, not just for them, but for me. Lily looked down at her cup. You don't have to explain. I understand. No, he said gently. I need to, because for the first time in a long time, I want something, and I'm terrified that I'll ruin it, that I'll ruin you, that I'll disappoint those girls. You won't, she said, her voice steady. You just have to stop running. Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a silver chain. On it was a charm shaped like a compass, worn, scratched, but still whole. This was my dad's, he said. He gave it to me before my first tour. Told me, when you're lost, let this remind you where home is. He slid it across the table. I've carried it through every deployment, every bad night, but I think it's yours now. Lily looked at the compass, then at him. You sure? I'm sure, he whispered, because this is where I want to stay. And in that quiet kitchen between the soft hum of the fridge and the faint thunder rolling in the distance, they made a promise. Not spoken with fancy words, not sealed with vows, but real, a promise to try, a promise to fight for the life they'd stumbled into, a promise that from now on, no one walks away. Sometimes joy doesn't arrive with fanfare. It slips in quietly, a burst of laughter in the hallway, a hand reaching out without thinking, or the kind of happiness that catches you by surprise because you never believed you'd feel it again. The next morning, the house woke with light, real light, not just from the rising sun, but from within. Something had shifted, not in grand gestures, but in the way Caleb stood a little taller as he poured cereal, in the way Lily hummed while tying Sophie's shoes, in the way the girls beamed every time Caleb kissed the tops of their heads. It felt normal. The kind of normal none of them had dared to believe in. That Saturday they went to the park. It was Eliza's idea. "We need fresh air. Daddy said so," she declared while dragging Lily's jacket to the door. The air was crisp, the sky clear, and the scent of spring finally returning to the earth. They brought a kite, one Lily had forgotten she even had, stuffed in the back of a closet. Caleb helped the girls untangle the string while Lily watched from a bench, a soft smile on her face. And when the kite finally lifted, soaring high into the sky, the twins screamed with delight. They ran across the field, hair flying, arms up, Caleb laughing as he chased them. He tripped once, dramatically, and the girls collapsed beside him in giggles. Lily's chest ached, not with sadness, but with something she hadn't felt in a long time: gratitude. She stood and joined them, and as she knelt down beside Caleb and the girls in the tall grass, Eliza reached over, grabbed her hand and said with a grin, "Now we got two grown-ups." Sophie nodded. "It's like double the love." Lily looked at Caleb, eyes meeting his. Something quiet passed between them. Later that evening, back home, as the girls napped after too much sun and too much ice cream, Lily and Caleb found themselves side by side again on the porch. "I don't remember the last time I laughed like that," Caleb said, eyes closed, head tilted back against the wall. "I don't remember the last time I didn't feel alone," Lily replied softly. He turned to her, his expression gentle. "You're not alone anymore." She didn't respond. She didn't need to, because in that moment, surrounded by the scent of grass, distant giggles from inside, and a sky full of stars just beginning to peek out, joy had returned, unexpected, unannounced, but exactly on time. Love is easy in laughter and sunshine, but the true test is found in long nights, unexpected news, and choices that ask, will you still stand by each other when it isn't easy anymore? Weeks passed, then months, and what once felt temporary had become life. School lunches, shared grocery lists, dance recitals, quiet Sunday mornings with pancakes and sleepy yawns. Caleb found part-time work at the auto shop down the road. Lily's shifts at the hardware store stayed steady. The girls were thriving, drawing pictures of their family and school, making friends, sleeping soundly through the night. But time, as always, came with challenges. One morning, Lily opened the mail to find an envelope stamped with government insignia. It was for Caleb, from the Department of Defense. She handed it to him without saying a word, but something about the way he looked at it made her stomach twist. He didn't open it right away. Not that day, not the next. Finally, one night, long after the girls had fallen asleep, she found him sitting on the back porch, letter in hand, unopened. "What is it?" she asked gently, sliding beside him. He was quiet for a long time. Then finally, "It's about re-enlistment. My old unit's rebuilding. They want me back." Lily's chest tightened. "You're thinking about going?" "I don't know," he whispered. "It's steady work, full benefits, and it's what I know." She nodded, even though every part of her wanted to scream no. "And the girls? They'd stay with you, if you'd let them." Her head snapped toward him. "You think they'd be okay with that? Watching you leave again?" Caleb looked down, ashamed. "I thought maybe it would be easier for them now. They've got you. Stability. Love." "You think love is something you can just walk away from?" she said softly. "You think this, what we built, was just a resting place before you disappeared again?" "I think I don't know what I deserve," he admitted, voice shaking. Lily stood, tears stinging her eyes. "You deserve them. You deserve this, but only if you fight for it." He looked up at her, vulnerable in a way he hadn't been since the first week they met. I don't want to lose any of it. Then don't. He opened the letter slowly. It was a standard request for availability, not an official order. He folded it up, stared at it for a long time, then tore it clean in two. I already found my unit, he said quietly. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just sat beside him again, leaned her head on his shoulder, and watched the stars. They didn't know what trials tomorrow would bring. School problems, bills, hard days, long nights. But they knew one thing. This time, they were facing it all together. Some beginnings don't start with first meetings or grand moments. They begin in quiet forgiveness, in choosing each other every single day, and in believing, finally, that happiness can be real. Spring turned to summer. The house felt brighter than ever. Not because of the weather, but because of the people inside it. There were shoes by the door that no one rushed to put away, drawings taped messily to the fridge, and laughter echoing down the hallway late into the evening. One Sunday morning, Lily stood at the stove flipping pancakes while Sophie and Eliza braided each other's hair in the living room. Caleb walked in, his shirt still damp from washing the car, a smile playing on his lips as he watched them all. "Smells like heaven," he said, wrapping his arms around Lily from behind. She smiled without turning. "That's because I finally didn't burn them." He chuckled and kissed her temple. It had been nearly 6 months since that rainy day outside the diner. 6 months since one sentence changed all their lives. "You're coming with me." Now the four of them were something more than housemates, more than temporary. They were family, not by blood, but by bond. Later that afternoon, they visited the community garden. The girls had their own patch where they insisted on planting purple flowers because they smell like jelly beans. Caleb helped them dig while Lily sat nearby, journaling quietly. As they were packing up, Eliza turned suddenly and asked, "Are we always going to stay here? With Miss Lily?" Sophie nodded firmly. "Yeah, this is our forever house." Caleb looked at Lily. She didn't need to answer. Her eyes said it all. "Yes, this is your home." That evening, Lily brought out a small box and called everyone to the table. Inside were 4 wooden keychains, hand-painted with names. Lily, Caleb, Sophie, Eliza. She handed each one out. "No more temporary," she said. "These keys are for our forever house." Sophie gasped. Eliza clutched hers like treasure. Caleb just stared at his for a long, quiet moment before finally whispering, "Thank you." Lily smiled. "For what?" "For letting us stay." "No," she said, "for choosing to." They toasted with juice and cookies. No fancy speeches, no need. Just 4 people who had found each other by chance and stayed by choice. Love is tested not by what we gain, but by what we're willing to lose. And sometimes the hardest choice isn't walking away. It's staying and giving everything when you have nothing left to give. Late one night, the phone rang. Lily answered groggily, rubbing her eyes. Caleb sat up beside her in bed, already alert. The girls were asleep in their room, their door cracked just a little like always. The voice on the other end was shaky, urgent. It was a friend from Caleb's unit. There had been an explosion overseas. One of Caleb's oldest Army brothers, Jackson, had been critically injured. He wasn't family by blood, but he'd been closer than a brother during those years on deployment. He had no next of kin, no one to speak for him, and the doctors were waiting. Caleb's face went pale, his hands clenched. After he hung up, he sat silently for a long time. Lily reached for him. "What is it?" "They need me. Not as a soldier," he said, voice tight. "As the only person left who knows him. They're asking me to fly out. Be there. Help make decisions." She didn't hesitate. "Then go." "I don't want to leave the girls again. I don't want to leave you." "You're not leaving us. You're doing what's right. That's what a father does. That's what a man like you always does." He looked away. "What if I miss something important? Eliza's play is next week. Sophie's been nervous about her spelling test. I promised I wouldn't miss anything." "You won't," Lily said, "because they'll know why you went. And they'll know you came back." He stared at her, eyes full of conflict. "What if I don't?" Her voice broke, just a little. Then I'll tell them every day who you were, what you stood for, what it means to love people so fiercely. You'd give everything for them, even your place beside them. Caleb didn't sleep that night. He sat in the girls' room for hours watching them breathe, brushing their hair back from their faces. At dawn, he packed a small bag. Lily drove him to the airport. No music played in the car, just the hum of the tires and the weight of everything unspoken between them. At the gate, Caleb turned, pulled Lily into his arms, and held her like it was the last time. Then he knelt down, pulled out a small stuffed bunny, and handed it to her. "Tell Eliza I borrowed it. I'll bring it back with stories." Lily nodded, fighting back tears. "Just come home." And then he was gone. Not running, not hiding, but walking straight into pain for the sake of someone he once called brother. And in that moment, Lily realized, love doesn't always stay in the room. Sometimes it travels across oceans, not to escape, but to prove it was real all along. Some endings aren't really endings. They're quiet landings after a long flight. The moment when all the chaos, all the pain, and all the wandering finally settle, and the heart whispers, "You made it." It was nearly 3 weeks before Caleb returned. The days had been long, and the nights longer. Lily held the house together. School drop-offs, spelling tests, bedtime stories, all while checking her phone every hour, hoping for news. The girls missed him terribly, but they didn't cry as much as she feared. They were stronger now. They trusted he'd come back. And Lily clung to that hope, even when the days stretched into silence. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low and the girls played with sidewalk chalk outside, Lily heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel. She didn't run. She walked slowly, afraid it might be a dream. But it was him. Caleb stood beside a cab, thinner, eyes heavier, but with a tired smile pulling at his lips. In his hand, a battered, worn stuffed bunny. The girls screamed. They tackled him before he could even speak. Caleb dropped to his knees and held them both tightly, arms trembling, lips pressed to their foreheads again and again. Lily stayed on the porch, her arms crossed but her heart racing. He looked up at her. She raised a brow. "You bring back any stories?" He nodded. "A few. One of them's about a man who thought he was alone in the world, until a woman told him, 'You're coming with me,' and meant it." She stepped down, slow and steady. "You're late." "Never again," he whispered. That night, after the girls had gone to sleep, tucked in with the bunny placed gently between them, Lily and Caleb sat in the living room, hand in hand. He told her everything. About Jackson, the hospital, the decisions no one should ever have to make. About holding his friend's hand as the machines were turned off. About flying home with grief folded neatly inside his chest. "And now," Lily asked gently. "Now I just want peace," he said. "And I only know one place I've ever truly found it." He kissed her then, not with fire, but with a quiet certainty, a promise, renewed. The next morning, Lily woke to the smell of pancakes and the sound of 2 giggling girls. Caleb was in the kitchen, humming off-key, flipping pancakes that were slightly burnt at the edges. Lily smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a real family, born not from ease but from choice, courage, and the kind of love that survives storms and silence alike. And as the 4 of them sat down to eat, laughing, interrupting, making syrupy messes, Lily realized that they weren't who they used to be. They were better. Together, they had created a harmony that would last. Not because life would never test them again, but because this time they knew they'd never face it alone.